What will the geothermal industry look like in 10 years?
Right now, there's a lot of excitement around next-generation technologies, promising to unlock geothermal in places we've never drilled before.
But does that mean that we will phase out traditional geothermal, or are we looking at a mix of both?
This is GeoTV, Geothermal at a Crossroads. What happens next?
Welcome back to GeoTV. I'm Gabriella Skog.
And I'm Boel Stier. Next generation geothermal is gaining a lot of momentum, and companies like Fervo are adapting oil and gas technologies, bringing down drilling time and cost fast.
At the same time, demand for clean, reliable power is surging, partly driven by energy-hungry data centers. So the question is, what will geothermal look like in 10 years? Will new technologies lead the way, or will traditional geothermal still play a major part?
I think you're going to see EGS explode across the world, and I think you're going to see hydrothermal become a very specific and strategic play in places like in islands where you've got high volcanic activity, or in remote places where you've got a confirmed hydrothermal resource that can be easily applied to any sort of industrial setting.
We're going to impact geothermal energy over the next 5 to 10 years. There's three things really. It's policies, it's demand, which is obviously the big one, and it's technologies. It's getting those technologies out there to really make things happen. So being a big piece of the energy pie, I think, is, and in all its forms, EGS, AGS, and conventional, I see as being, my hope.
So, a bit of both, but with strong momentum behind next-gen technologies.
And as always, regardless of the technology, we need supportive policies and a strong demand to scale.
We do. Let's hear what John Clegg from tech innovator Hefe has to say.
5 years ago, Steve Crace, my co-founder, and I were working in the oil and gas industry. And we'd both spent a decade or more working on technologies used in unconventional oil and gas drilling, shale. And we started to look at geothermal as a potential market for some of this equipment with a lot of skepticism, because we thought that geothermal was a fairly small, geographically bound industry. You think about places like California, like Iceland, Italy, New Zealand, and so on. And they all have similar geographic and geologic characteristics. And there aren't that many places like that in the world. And for that reason, we'd always thought that geothermal was going to be sort of fairly bounded and fairly niche compared with oil and gas drilling. And then in the early part of this decade, in 2020 and 2021, we stumbled upon companies, initially companies like Ever and Fervo, who were pioneering next generation geothermal ideas. And we realized a couple of things. The first one was we realized that the technologies that we used in shale drilling, unconventional oil and gas drilling, were very transferable to next generation geothermal, directional drilling, horizontal drilling, in some cases hydraulic fracturing. And the second thing we realized that this technology would allow you to drill geothermal wells anywhere. So you're no longer bounded by geography. And the realization there was, well, actually, this could be huge. And we thought about how quickly and how big unconventional oil and gas got in the United States. And we thought you could be looking at a similar kind of pattern here. And that convinced us to give up all the other stuff we were doing and found Hefe, a company to develop high temperature versions of the very same equipment used to drill unconventional oil and gas wells. So because of that, our belief is that there will always be a place for conventional hydrothermal, geothermal drilling. But that place will always be in similar geographies. It will always be in places like, California, Italy, and so on. But we also believe that next generation geothermal could become really, really big. It'll start in the Western United States. You can see that happening already. And it will progress from there to places with lower thermal gradients as drilling costs come down, as the industry scales, and as people get more confidence in the economics of it. we're basing our business models on things like forecasts by IEA, who are forecasting, I think, 800 or 900 gigawatts by 2050. And if we actually scale that back and we work back, we're looking at a couple of thousand rigs by 2035, 10 years from now, and maybe 25,000 wells drilled per year. And that's about a third the size of the oil and gas industry. Whereas conventional geothermal will still continue to drill a relatively small number of wells, but very important wells, but a relatively small number of wells in each year. The oil and gas industry drills about, 70 or 80,000 wells a year. So if we're looking at 25,000 wells a year in 10 years' time, definitely on track to become a similar size. It's the same order of magnitude as oil and gas drilling at that point. There's a lot of potential growth in next generation. And I think that's where all of the growth in the industry is going to come from. So the industry will kind of switch. At the moment, it's predominantly hydrothermal and conventional geothermal. But over the next decade, it'll flip around, and we believe it'll become predominantly next generation, simply because there's so much more geographic locations that you can use for next gen.
That's a pretty compelling vision, next generation geothermal as something that can actually scale globally.
But it also raises the bigger question, what happens then to conventional hydrothermal? Because while NextGen is gaining such big momentum, hydrothermal is what has been delivering reliably for decades and what we've built upon for so long.
100%. And to get to that perspective, we also spoke to Ormet Technologies, a global leader in hydrothermal, geothermal with decades of experience.
And interestingly, they're not standing still. They're also getting into next gen and recently announced partnership with SLB as well as Sage Geosystems.
One could even say that they are operating in both worlds.
I don't know what the percentage will be, of course, but for sure in my mind, it's a mix of both next generation technologies and the continuation of what we know, the tried and true, and what has been proven in the industry so far. I can certainly foresee a switch if we talk about the level of energy needed around the world. If next generation technologies produce what the marketing statements are saying today, then eventually, the next generation will overcome and dilute, the traditional generation will be diluted on a total level sense, just because of the vast expansion that next generation geothermal brings. However, traditional technologies to hydrothermal development, what we know today, these systems last a lifetime. So they'll still be running and they'll still be growing and they'll interact with the next generation technologies as they become commercial to make themselves. Every single development that's happening in this next generation space will benefit traditional development as well. So that's where I say I have to see a clear path forward that continues traditional development, and that's benefiting from all the advancements that are coming through on the next generational side. This industry has been through a number of different cycles over the last. I've seen it for 20 years, so others have seen it for longer. And there's been many cycles of an input of new ideas and development of ideas that each time has produced new fruit that the industry has used. And while I recognize that the let's call it the geothermal decade that we're in now has truly shown that this is substantially larger than ones before, larger cycles. The amount of investment made into geothermal today is exponentially larger than the cycle before. The amount of interest, the amount of companies that are coming in to help this industry grow is exponentially larger than before. So it excites me because I know that there will be fruit out of this cycle, and there will be developments that lead this industry in a new path. And who knows the size of that path or the length of that path today, but no doubt in my mind that we're on a new path that will change the world in one way, shape, or form.
So at this crossroads, it's not really a question of either or, at least not anytime soon.
No, what we're hearing is much more layered. So while NextGen is scaling fast, it's also building on decades of hydrothermal experience.
Absolutely, and in many ways the two are already starting to converge. Next generation technologies are pushing the boundaries while also making existing technologies more efficient, more durable, and more competitive.
So this isn't necessarily about replacement. It's about geothermal entering a new phase of global growth. So Gabriella, the geothermal decade, it's not ahead of us, it's already here.
Definitely, Boel. And unfortunately, this episode of GeoTV has come to an end, but if you have a story for us that we should feature in our next episode, please let us know. Until then, stay curious, stay energized,
And stay hot.